Hi, I'm back, and this is week 12. And all I'm going to do on this one is simply remind you of what the purpose of the week's readings are and discuss each one of them very briefly. Take a good look, if you can, at the final exam because it's out there now, and I hope you'll find it to be enough, give you enough variety and interesting topics to enjoy. These are the readings and views that are required for this week. And in terms of Shine, now that he has given us the key to how to change organizations, that was chapter 17. In chapter 18, he gives a sort of a checkoff list, a sample of how you would actually do a cultural assessment. I think it's pretty interesting. Try to visualize yourself doing that in a company or maybe in your own organization, possibly in your family. And then he gives the next chapter, 19, he gives extensive cases with particular emphasis on Sibagagi, which seems to be his favorite one. That seemed to be the one that he was consulting with more than anybody else. And he's just loaded with interesting examples, plus some successes that he had at the very end of his engagement there. The GGS epilogue, I think, is interesting because then Professor Diamond turns his attention to some real-world issues in history and how some of his findings in the basic early chapters relate to today's world. I think you'll enjoy reading it and also take a look at the presentation done by Jess and Laura just up there at 11, at Strand 11. I think you'll find it interesting. I've got the Peter Norvig 100,000 student classroom one, and there's only 6 minutes. And it's probably the best example I can give you of why some people think that distance learning eventually will have some benefits. In his case, he was talking about a giant classroom, but the themes that he uses are ones I try to use in this course, actually, to relatively short lectures and getting people talking to one another. That seems to be important. The Council of Economic Advisors comments, they're in there because that's on the COT scale. That's a technology one, but here he is, the chairman of the Economic Council, and he's talking about technology, mostly about telecommunications technology, and he brings up 3 really interesting policy issues, all of which have to do with something we've talked about frequently, which is the digital divide in the United States. He looks upon that as a really serious problem because all 3 of the issues he brings up in terms of things to worry about are in that category. The last half of the Human Development Report, that's the United Nations report, and the last half of the World Development Report should be interesting reading. It's easy to browse through them, and I think you're going to see not only an example of really good reports, which I think you'll agree those are, but also the use of some very interesting analytical tools to try to bring home their points. Remember, both of them, the bank and the United Nations, have a political agenda, but one might think that it's reasonably benign, so that, but even documents like this do have a political agenda. Finally, Jonathan Haidt's book on the, TED presentation on the cultural differences between liberals and conservatives. That should be interesting. I hope you find it so because it brings up some somewhat whimsical but also very specific ideas that he has about how those two parties can differ and what the cultures of the two might connote. That's it. I hope you have a good week this week, and we're getting close to the end of the course. Take a look at those exam questions. I hope you can find plenty of them that you find interesting. That's it.